Hello, Heather Hoffman here to share a couple cards that I made using some Reverse Confetti Stencils and dye inks mixed with embossing paste to make some ombre style backgrounds. Using the dye inks is a great way to stretch your stencils and add some more colors and only need to have one color of embossing paste. So I start off with a panel of white cardstock, and you need just easily removable tape. I like Post-it tape because it peels off easily and doesn't rip your paper. And I made a thin border around the edges of my white cardstock and then tape my stencil in place nice and firmly. And I'm using seafoam and mint dye ink and a nonstick mat. You could use a paper plate, a tile, whatever, a palette. But I'm just smudging a little bit of ink on the mat. I started with the seafoam ink and it was a little pale, so I smudged the mint on there and added a little bit of that. And then, so I'm making two colors, a lighter mint and then a darker. Add as much ink as you need. You can see how one of those colors is a little paler and one of them is a little bolder. And I'm going to start off, first of all, I'm cleaning my palette knife off, starting at the top with just a little bit of white embossing paste. This will kind of help blend in the colors to make the ombre. So first of all, add the white, then add the lighter shade, and it's okay for them kind of to mix and blend together as you're going. And then I added the darkest color at the bottom. And as you smooth it all down, you'll just kind of see how the colors merge together. And peel it off, and there you go. So I'll set this one aside to dry. And then since I ended up coloring a little too much, I decided to make a bonus card with it. So I pulled out a different Reverse Confetti stencil. And this one I'm going a little coarser on the blending, leaving more texture. You'll see on the finished card. I love the texture that embossing paste gives you. It's kind of almost a cottony, fabricy feel. And I left this one nice and bumpy, so had lots of nice texture. Use the palette knife to wipe the extras off the side. Now for a focal sentiment word, I wanted to make it the exact same color, so you could use a foam blender or something like that, but I just rubbed my ink pads right on a piece of white cardstock, and then I grabbed the thanks word from Hello and Thanks frame dies, and I die cut that out once out of the two colors, so I gave the word an ombre effect, and to make the sentiment a nice thick focal point, I'm die cutting it 2 more times just out of the white cardstock at the bottom there. And once I've got those both cut out, I'm gonna layer those together. That'll make a nice thick dimensional sentiment to go on the front of my card. Low poking piercing tool works really well to get those little tiny pieces out. And then I'm just using a simple glue pen to glue everything together, and I pick one and I add the adhesive on there, and then I slowly merge. You notice how the word kind of bends, so I start with the first letter and I just kind of match them up together before pressing them into place. That way you have a perfect fit. So I put the 2 white ones together, and now I'm going to do the same thing to add my dye colored one for the top, so that'll match on the front of my card. Once that's all put together, there it is on there. Now I wanted to add an extra little sentiment underneath, so I'm grabbing a sentiment from Kindness Card stamp set, and I'm using some Stormy cardstock and heat embossing in white. My card base is stone cardstock. They're both really great grays, and I like using them together. So I'm going to heat emboss my sentiment in white, and then just use a paper trimmer once that's melted to cut it into a thin strip to go underneath. You could use a die to cut it in a banner or something like that too, but for this I just wanted it a nice simple strip. And I use some foam adhesive on the back of it to stick it on. Holds it nice and sturdy on top of the embossing paste on that front panel. And then I trim off the extra just with a pair of scissors, nice and simple. And then I'm going to add that nice thick thanks with a little bit of multi-matte adhesive to attach it on. And then just add it to the front of the card base, and you're all done. Thanks so much for stopping by today. I hope you enjoyed.